We live in a culture that treats freedom like an all-you-can-eat buffet. The operating assumption is that true liberty means doing exactly what you want, whenever you want, entirely independent of the people around you. You can see the friction this creates every time you check the news. Ideological dogma hardens, extreme polarization fractures communities, and our cultural institutions grind to a complete halt. This animated diagram shows exactly why that model fails. When you have 8 billion distinct versions of absolute freedom operating in the same space, they inevitably collide. In a finite world, movement without coordination results in a tangled, impenetrable gridlock. The solution to this gridlock might actually be hiding in a poem written over a decade ago. An author recently unearthed a piece they wrote 13 years prior, titled simply "Simple," to see if their worldview held up over time. There is a distinct vulnerability when we open our old journals. Writing our thoughts down traps them in amber, allowing us to read them years later to measure our growth and see if our core beliefs survive the test of time. This particular poem reveals something striking. Escaping our modern gridlock doesn't come from forcing the world to accept your version of reality. It requires stepping back and adopting a shared framework of coexistence. The opening lines of the poem establish a conscious choice to live in the middle. The author writes, "I am a liberal, a conservative, and the gray areas in between. I straddle the line on some issues." This diagram demonstrates the limits of binary thinking. When the rigid spectrum of two opposing colors shatters, it reveals an expansive gray area. This space organizes into a dynamic web, allowing us to evaluate complex issues simultaneously, without being forced down a predetermined pathway. To maintain that balance, the author notes that, when needed, I can remove emotions from just the facts. Decision-making often gets clouded by our immediate, turbulent reactions, but when that emotional fog actively clears away, it exposes the sharp, factual reality beneath, allowing us to evaluate the situation clearly. Holding a moderate position often gets criticized as indecision. In reality, it is the necessary architectural foundation for seeing the world clearly enough to live alongside other people. This brings us to the central pivot of the poem. The author writes, "I understand to live in a society as simply free, absolute freedom it cannot hold on to be." This diagram illustrates the societal contract. An expanding circle of absolute freedom eventually hits a boundary. True freedom is restrained by the presence of others. The mechanism is reciprocal. We actively adjust our borders to grant neighbors the exact same freedom we require. Maintaining this balance requires an active psychological choice. As the poem puts it, pompous pretentiousness, dogma, I'm Beeve at the door. You have to consciously choose not to impose your beliefs on anyone else. You have to respect different convictions and physically make room for others to share the floor. Self-restraint is frequently framed as a sacrifice of personal liberty, but as the visual illustrates, it is the essential mechanical gear that makes collective freedom possible in a shared environment. The climax of the poem distills this entire philosophy into a single geometric metaphor. The author writes, "Because I am of a simple mind, knowing that within simplicity lies the sublime." We each have an individual box to bear. It contains your specific beliefs, your traits, and your lifelong convictions. It's entirely unique to you. When we try to force others inside our specific container or attempt to destroy theirs, our boundaries violently crash. The friction fractures both sides. This diagram shows the solution. Intentionally shaping your individual box to slide seamlessly into the only box we all share, society. As the negative space between blocks highlights, the individual shapes aren't destroyed. Their distinct boundaries create the structural integrity of the entire system. The author looked back at these words 13 years later and found they still perfectly captured their worldview, even as our modern era has grown intensely polarized. It leaves us with a question about our own geometry. Are you demanding absolute freedom to the detriment of everyone around you? Or are you consciously shaping your box to share the floor?